Hello and welcome to episode 104 of my Wurm Unlimited tutorial series. This episode is going to be on fletching, which is really a carry-on from the last episode, which was bowery. It's all well and good having a bow, but unless you've got some arrows in your inventory or your quiver, you're not going to do a lot with your bow. So hence this episode on fletching. So let's start by making a really obvious statement. Fletching is the skill used in the creation and improving of arrows. There we are. The items involved in fletching are shafts, iron lumps, arrow shafts and arrowheads. There is one type of shaft, but there are two types of arrowheads, which are hunting arrowheads and war arrowheads. Now you're asking me, what is the difference between hunting arrows and war arrows? Well, at least you're not asleep and snoring, so I will answer. Hunting arrows have greater accuracy than war arrows, but do less damage. War arrows do more damage than hunting arrows, but are less accurate. So there we have it. Now some information on arrows. Arrows are used in the following order. So when you have your bow equipped, and remember a bow is a two-handed weapon, arrows in your equipped quiver will be shot first using your bow. Arrows in a quiver that is in your inventory will be used after the arrows that are in your equipped quiver. And then last of all, loose arrows that are in your inventory will be used last of all. So if we take a look at the inventory, so if you have arrows in here, that's where they'll be pulled from last of all. I don't even know how it's going to make sense of what I'm just trying to say there. Anyway, so if you have a quiver equipped on your body down here in your hip slot, so if you've made a quiver and it's full of arrows, that is the first place that Wurm will choose to use your arrows from. If you have a quiver in your inventory full of arrows, after your hip slot quiver has depleted its arrows, it will then start to pull the arrows from your quiver in your inventory, and then last of all the loose arrows that are in your inventory itself. So there we go. The quiver I will do in the next episode, and it will be a good one. Okay, moving on. Excuse me. Now some information on arrows. Wait, actually I've said that already, sorry, it's where I'm going back to my notes after all my waffling. Right, carrying on with information on arrows. Arrows made from maple take less damage. 4 damage a shot instead of 5. Arrows made from cedar are easier to improve. So with this in mind, the golden rule to fletching is grind your fletching skill making arrows with cedar, but have another set of arrows for when you go hunting made out of maple. And because of what I've just told you, explained to you about maple arrows and cedar arrows, that should make complete sense. Now some information on arrowheads. The quality level of the arrowhead affects creation success. Upon creation failure, the arrowhead loses 0.5 quality. So there's some information on the heads themselves. Now some information on arrow shafts. An arrow shaft can be used as a weapon without attaching a head to it, but with little accuracy or damage. normally used in practicing on an archery target, which will be in the next episode, and it will be a good one. Arrow shafts cannot be improved, so quality is capped by the raw material quality that you're using to make the arrow shafts. One important thing to mention: before you start making arrows, let's bring up the skills window. Okay, before you start to make arrows, and I mean in the finished state of having arrowheads attached, get your fletching skill as high as you can manage. So as long as your endurance can bear, get your fletching skill as high as you can. This way you will have far less failures in making your arrows. If you are playing Wurm Online, aim to get your fletching to at least 20 before you start to make completed arrows, i.e. adding heads to your shafts. If you are playing Wurm Unlimited, train your skill to a minimum of 40. So on Wurm Online, a minimum of 20. On Wurm Unlimited, train your fletching to a minimum of 40. Then start adding arrowheads to your shafts. That way you will notice hopefully a lot less failures than if you were trying to make your arrows from, let's say, under 10 skill. Okay, so that should hopefully make sense too now. The items involved, oh no, I've told you about that. The tools for improving arrows are carving knife, mallet, file, pelt and a log. With the carving knife, mallet, file and pelt, obviously they will use quality as you use them, but the log of course will use itself up eventually. Right, okay, well enough waffling about arrows, shafts and arrowheads. As they say, proof is in the pudding, so let's make some arrows. Now I'm going to start by making some arrow shafts. To make arrow shafts you need shafts. I've already shown you how to make shafts, so we won't waste your precious time by making shafts. You know how to do that. So instead what we're going to jump to is making arrow shafts. Now with arrow shafts, like I say, they can be used as a weapon. You don't have to attach arrowheads to them. So in the next episode I will demonstrate that. So let's bring up the crafting recipes, and in there you can see if you type in arrow it will bring up all the information you need for making your arrows. Okay, we're going to start with the arrow shafts. So we're going to need our crude knife and a shaft. I have a stack of shafts and I have a crude knife in my backpack. Okay, so let's add the arrow shaft. Remember the wood you use: cedar for when you want to grind your skill, your fletching skill, to get it higher, and maple for if you want to make arrows to actually go out hunting with. I know I've repeated myself, but for things that are important like this, the wood you're going to use, it's important for me to be repetitive. Okay, so let's now add all these shafts. Yes, you're going to need to make lots and lots of arrows. And on the right, let's add our carving knife, if I can remember where I put it. Let's expand this a little. There we go, there's my carving knife. Oops. Right, okay, so there we are, arrow shaft, 49%. Well, we can consider ourselves lucky because my skill is only on 1. So I'm starting right at the beginning where Yol will be starting as well. Right, okay, so let's whack that to 4, which it's at, and start creating our arrow shafts. Yes, I know I'm using low quality shafts. What's the point in wasting good quality shafts when my fletching is so low? Yes, we appreciate that. So let's create and watch our skill climb up. There we go, making nice jump. See, in Wurm Unlimited, it doesn't take long at all. In Wurm Online, you're going to be using a lot of your sleep bonus. What can I say? Now, with fletching, you will need a lot of patience, because you're going to be making lots of arrows and lots of arrowheads to start with, because there's so many factors involved with fletching, bowery and archery. They're all combined, they're all skills closely related together, but there is so many factors that you just will not get in any other game that you need to appreciate in Wurm, because it will make the process much longer than the majority of the other games. Now, there is another good game that I love archery in, which is EverQuest 1. I love the archery in that because, again, you can make bows, you can make arrows, you can apply poisons. So anyway, it's like Wurm, lots of levels to do with using bows and arrows. Anyway, like I say, with fletching you're going to need a fair amount of patience, because you can see it takes a little while to make the shafts, and then because we're just starting out, our failure rate at even making just the bare shafts is high, let alone when we get on to actually making arrows. Now you can appreciate why I said get your skill to at least 40 in Wurm Unlimited and 20 in Wurm Online. The reason I say only 20 in Wurm Online is because the skill gain is much slower. For those of you playing Wurm Online, if you have a high endurance, then by all means get your fletching to 40 before you commence making arrows. But for the majority of people, of course, you won't have a great deal of patience, I wouldn't imagine, with fletching. So that's why I set the levels that I did. Anyway, you can see we're slowly accumulating some shafts. How many arrow shafts should you make? Well, let's say because they can be stored in a storage bin, a bulk storage bin, so let's just show you. Let's grab one arrow shaft and pull it in the bin, and so there we are, there's the arrow shaft I just made. So they can be stored in bulk storage bins. How many should you make? Make 1,000. Yes, you heard me correctly. This isn't one of your silly games where you can make something in 2 minutes. This is Wurm. Welcome to Wurm, and it's going to teach you respect. Make 1,000 arrow shafts to get you started. In actual fact, that will do you for now, because probably not all of you will be into archery, although I'll tell you now, for hunting it is fantastic for pulling the creatures. So you've got a scorpion right over in the distance. If you're using a longbow, which you should be for hunting, use your longbow to pull that creature right off in the distance. For lazy people like me, like the gamester, it's a must-have, because then you can pull the mobs that are right in the distance and they will come to you. How cool is that? So archery is so worth getting into. Bowery, fletching, archery, all these skills, so worth getting into. Anyway, sorry, I should be creating some more of these shafts. Well, this is enough for now. Otherwise my lumps are going to cool, and that won't be good, because that means then we're going to have to wait another 10 minutes for my lumps to heat up. So I better stop with the shafts and crack on with the heads. Okay, there we are. I've demonstrated enough anyway, so you get the gist. We've now got some arrow shafts, which on their own are excellent for training archery, but we'll get to that in the next episode. Let's drop the shafts in the bulk storage bin, because when I put them into my wagon I usually forget about them and they rot, and we don't want to do that. So right, okay, let's now open up the forge. And now to make the arrowheads, as you know there's two types, hunting arrows and war arrows. We're going to make some of each. We will need an iron lump that is glowing, and we will need a small anvil. Okay, let's now go back over here to the crafting recipes. Okay, we're going to make some war arrowheads first of all. So I'll right click on the war arrowhead. Oh wait a minute, no, I'll need to double click and then find an iron. Of course the best material you can use to make the heads are steel in Wurm Unlimited. If you're playing Wurm Online and you battle the gods and you're getting glimmer steel and adamantine, then perhaps them materials would be better. I've not actually tested bronze, copper, gold or silver. As far as I'm aware there's no vampires in Wurm, so I'm not sure of the practicality of using silver unless for decoration. Anyway, I mean that's possibly another episode doing all the different types. For now let's just keep it short and sweet. So we're going to make an iron arrowhead, so let's add that to, and this is hunting arrows, add that to the crafting window. Okay, so let's now find the arrowheads, which are right at the bottom here. 68%, so that's quite cool because it's going to be using our smithing. Let's see if I can find that now. So many windows. Forgive me for all the windows, apologies for all these windows that are opening up. Okay, where's my smithing? There it is. So we're going to be using weapon smithing, and in particular weapon heads smithing. Now when you're making your arrowheads, whether it's hunting arrowheads or war arrowheads, do not worry too much about imping the actual heads, because remember, when you attach the heads to the shafts, the quality level's gonna not be affected on the actual quality level of your arrows. It just, if you remember me saying, the arrowhead quality level will just determine your success chance. Now if you want to get into fletching really deeply, then I would say to you, yes, imp up your arrowheads, because obviously then you'll have far less failures as well. Anyway, I could stray off on a tangent. I won't. Let's make some hunting arrowheads. Let's make 4. Let's see how much material it uses. So as you can see, only a tiny little fractional amount, but then of course we will need 1 for each shaft. So if we're making 1,000 shafts, that's 1,000 heads. So let's say we have 1,000 arrow shafts. Let's make 500 hunting arrowheads and 500 war arrowheads. That's just an example of what you can do. Anyway, I failed a lot there, as you can see, so let's try and make some more. And as you can see, the skill weapons head smithing is going up. So you may have thought previously, when in the previous episodes when we made the weapons, that, you know, the swords and axes, your weapons head smithing is important, an important skill. It's a slow skill to get up, but definitely worth training because of all the items you'll be using it for. So do try and train it up a bit. See if you can get a title winner. How cool would that be? Okay, we've got 3 hunting arrowheads. Let's just make a few more, and then we'll make some war arrowheads. Okay, that'll do. Now we'll make some war arrowheads. Right, okay, switching back to the recipes. Let's see if I can find war arrowheads. There we go, that's what we want, the war arrowheads, and we're going to make some iron. Again, it's iron lumps and a small anvil, exactly the same components. Right click that, add to the crafting window, scroll all the way to the bottom, and there's our, let's close that. There's our war arrowhead. Notice it is more difficult to make than the hunting arrowhead. Anyway, let's add that to the crafting window. Oops, my brain's gone. Yep, my brain's definitely gone. Can I expand that? No. Yeah, so anyway, I'm trying to click on this. Brain has definitely went off on a... I don't know where my brain went then, but anyway, we're back on course. So we're creating some now war arrowheads. Let's create a few more. Again, getting our weapon smithing up. I hope you like mining. Right, okay, so we have some war arrowheads, we have some hunting arrowheads. Now let's make some arrows. Let's put the iron lump back in there. Let's put the anvil back in there. Okay, so bring up the recipes, and in here let's just type arrow. Okay, so let's make some hunting arrows first of all, and then we will make some war arrows. Notice this is now going to be switching back to fletching. Now, I did warn you about if you try and make arrows with a low level, you're going to get lots of failures, which no doubt we will, and every time we fail, the arrowhead is going to take damage on its quality level. So let's create some hunting arrows. So add that to the crafting window. 50%, yeah, that ain't great. That's not very good at all, but anyway, let's try and create some. Okay, what I should have done is dragged all my shafts up here and dragged all the arrowheads up here. But as you can see, I'm not exactly making anything as yet. Oh wow, there we go. We have ourselves a hunting arrow. Yes, I made it out of cedar wood because this will just be, once you've made your finished arrow, then is the time you should get busy improving it. Now you can imp up your heads to get some weapon head smithing skill. Definitely recommend that. You can't improve your arrows though, remember. So if you're going to make arrow shafts for training on your archery target, which we'll do in the next episode, make them out of logs with the highest quality level that you can cut, okay, because then the shafts will last longer for your training. Anyway, I'm waffling. Let's get back to making some more arrows. So let's just drop the shafts in there and drop the hunting arrowheads in there, and let's create some more. My fletching is going up nicely, so it doesn't take long in Wurm Unlimited. In Wurm Online, it's another matter altogether. You will be a while getting your skill up. Okay, so we've got 2 hunting arrows. That will do. That will suffice for now. Next, let's make some war arrows. So let's add that to the crafting window. Notice slightly more difficult. Okay, you're now wondering what's the best arrows to use for when you go hunting. Well, I've explained the differences between these two, so it's really down to personal preference. But if you want to know what the gamester uses, he uses war arrows, because if I do manage to hit it, I want to do as much damage as I can with that treasured hit, because it ain't going to be too often that I do hit. Not until I start getting some of my skills up with my bow, Anyway, so there we go. Let's make some war arrows. So let's create. We'll possibly have even more failures. Oh, and it'll help if I load up some shafts and some heads. But I've gotten a war arrow that's been made, so that's cool. One thing to show you whilst we're making these arrows is they can be stored in the storage bin now. I believe you couldn't used to, but you can now. So let's grab a war arrow. No, they're heads. Where's the hunting arrows? Okay, let's grab an arrow and drop it in the bin. Oh, what am I doing? I'm looking for my... There it is. So as you can see, you can store your arrows in the bulk storage bins now, which is very, very handy because you couldn't used to be able to do that, but you can now. Okay, let's make some more war arrows. Okay, so there we go. Now if we right click the arrowhead, the hunting arrow, and examine or find on Wurmpedia, you'll see there it gives you a description of the arrow, and it also reminds you of what I've told you about the greater accuracy and the fact that it does less damage. So the choice is yours, and it also reminds you about using maple for the arrows that you're going to go hunting with. And it reminds you of the cedar for when you want to make arrows just to improve. So there we go. Okay, so we have hunting arrows, we have war arrows. We aren't going to go out hunting though with arrows this quality level, or even for that fact with bows at this quality level, not unless we're hunting chickens, and then we're going to spend all day trying to kill one chicken. Well, we're going to spend all day trying to hit the chicken, let alone actually harm the chicken, because even if our accuracy was 100%, with quality levels like this, we're going to tickle it. We aren't even going to, well, we're going to barely tickle it, especially as if I went to the archery skills, which are here, you can see I haven't even done them yet. But all in due course, all in good time. Okay, so I think that really covers fletching and all the different things to do with fletching. I will leave it there. I don't want to waffle on for waffle's sake. I just want to try and make sure that you have a complete all-round understanding of fletching. Wherever you are in the world, God bless you and keep every last one of you safe. Thank you for watching and have a fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed this episode on fletching. Goodbye.